Let's continue. So we're up to, pardon? We're up to Daled. I don't think so. We did. Yeah, we did the spider, yeah. We didn't? That's it, that's the first paragraph is Dalit. Okay, so what the Maimon is explaining is, there's two in Yonim here, in the Milah, which is the Samshachav, which is higher than Shabbos. So there's the need, it says on the surface of contradiction, there's a need to remove the Orla in order to be Mamshich, this high level. In other words, we're talking about an Orla which is not so terrible. The proof is that Hashem spoke to Avram when he had the Orla, and spoke to Tzaddikim who did not have Milah. But now it has to be removed in the face of the new Amshacha that Bris Milah brings. And the answer is, in essence, to simplify it and to tie it into the previous Maimon, which this is a Hamshach. Because this is Iriv Rishuyas, here we're talking about not just being Mamshech Alikus into the world, in a general sense, some level of Alikus. Not talking about just Gilul Alikus. Because Gilul Alikus could be Chesed, it could be Gvura, it could be one particular Kav. Here we're talking about a level where there is a truly expressive of Achdus Hashem. So here we're talking about removing the Orla here is removing the barrier between Chesed and Gevurah. That's the removal of the barrier on one level. So it was tolerable before, didn't have to remove the Orla, because before this Gilui, there was Gilui Lekos to Avram and to Tzaddikim, but what? It was of a particular defined, relatively speaking, it's all relative these terms, defined, infinite, it's constantly relative. But relatively defined Gilui. It was a Chesed revelation, a Gvura revelation, or any other midah. Hence, no need to remove the Orla on that level, because there were different Rishuyas, different domains. And they're both called, as in Halachah Shabbos, Rishus HaYochid, the domain of the absolute, the singular one, which is Hashem. But the whole Chiddush of Milah is Shmini, completely higher than Ishtal Shalos, higher than Shabbos, which is why it's Doicha Shabbos, and therefore now there's a need to remove the Orel. That's on one level, at the sublime level. Now he's explaining why there's a need also to remove, implied in the sources quoted, the Alter Rebbe Siddur, implied in the Siddur, explicit in the Siddur is, you have to remove the Orla, because when this Hashpah comes, it shouldn't end up in Klippa. Here we're talking about outright Klippa. How does Klippa get into the picture? The answer is, we learned yesterday, because since it's such a lofty revelation, and it tolerates evil, it's so lofty, then evil can get in there. So you got to make sure that this Hashpah goes in the right place, at the final Gilui Lamata, at the very end of the process, Yesoid and Malchus, we're speaking about, obviously, Ish v'Isha, but in general, our engagement in the world, as Malchus descends to govern Elam Hazeh, a world even of Klippa, the words of the Pasuk, Ragleha Yodis Maves, her feet, her, from the Malchus, descend into the realm of death, which is Elam Hazeh. So in Elam Hazeh, there's a further need to make sure that Klippa doesn't get its highest, dafke, because it's such a high Giloi that in essence can tolerate Klippa because it's bottled b'mitzias. So because it can tolerate Klippa, like the spider in the king's palace, no one notices it because of the grandeur and the vastness of the palace. Therefore, there's a need to make sure that a removal of a Klippa, that it should come, and an avodah at the level of Yesoid, that it should come at the level of in Hashpah Pnimius, the way it should be. In other words, in avodah, there's two kinds of Mila conveys two extreme kinds of avodah, and both are removing a barrier. On the one hand, it's a very sublime level. A person's holding a very hamadrega, but his avodah is in one thing here. He enjoys this kav. This one enjoys learning, this one enjoys davening, and the avodah of Mila is both chesed and gevurah, or other examples of different avodas. So he's a good guy. He's like Avram before the bris Mila, it's tzaddik, and so on. It's all good, but it's not tachlis avodah. Tachlis avodah is irrev reshuyos, to do even that avodah which is not natural to you, doesn't come by easily. Good. So that's one hasoras of the orla. And the other extreme is that when the ashpa comes all the way down, we're talking now hardcore gashmias. We're talking when the goof is engaged, where there's pleasure involved in a very, very deep way. We're talking about the bris. So there again, there's the need to make sure that in this whole experience and the whole drive and the whole expression, it doesn't end up chas v'shalom giving chayis to klippa on so many levels. It means even in the engagement itself, as Chassidus speaks, that the engagement of Ish has to be b'kedusha v'tahara. And as we've spoken about in the past, we're not holding a very high madregas. What that means is not to be selfish. That the focus should be the other. That's the first step in elevating the whole intimacy to inyan of kedusha. And then there's more, obviously more lower levels of avodah, where chas v'sholem, etc. It can be extremely corruptive. So that's what we learned now. Basically, now he's going to go deep into this. V'yuvan, further texture, further nuance into this. So the second paragraph of his Dalet. V'yuvan behektem beard. Before that, understood by first prefacing the beer being in Isu Malacha b'Shabbos, why Malacha is Asr on Shabbos. What is it? Sure, Inyan, this was addressed earlier, but going further. Sure, Inyan Ashvisim Malacha David Seberudim. It is, what are we ceasing? We're ceasing doing Avodah Seberudim, given Shabbos Beirid Osir. We said before in Siv Gimel that on Shabbos Beirid is forbidden. Shezehu, why? The fee, extracting, refining, separating, right? That's the idea of separating the nitzutz kedusha and elevating them. That's what Boruch is, Baruch is. Shabbos, you don't do that. Why not? The fee should be Shabbos, nimshach mizgala oir elyon beyoyse, because Shabbos is a very lofty giloy. Vim tiya oz eze metzias leklipa v'chitzonim, and if we'll allow then klipa to have any grasp on it, interesting, very subtle beer now. Even if the reason that we're engaging klippa is because you want to elevate it, that's what's happening during the week. Al P'Torah, we're engaging klippa, and the whole point is to elevate it into tzikdusha. So why don't we do this on Shabbos? Because since Shabbos brings to bear such a gilui oir, and if you bring that gilui oir to the world of klippa, that's because it's so lofty. On the contrary, it could end up being corrupted, and they could get a yenika that's revealed on Shabbos. So, in order to clip it, not to get a chayis from the gilui that is revealed on Shabbos, no malacha, don't engage the world. What about Mila? In Mila we do. But then there's a higher level, and this is the level which the Rabbi Kiva told the min, why the Eibishter is doing malachas, and that's expressed where in the of Mila, the fact that Mila supersedes Shabbos, and we do all the malachas that's required, cutting and heating up water and bandaging and medication, what have you. Why? We just said you can't do it on Shabbos because in this lofty giloi, like the spider, the clipper can fasten. Millet, no. Then there's a level where the Torah, in notwithstanding the lofty giloi, there's no prohibition against melacha. In brackets, because this is a level where there's no divisions of domains at all. Like Shabbos there is, unless we go and make an Erev. The chiddush of making the Erev again is the chiddush of Shlomo Melech, the chiddush of Teresh Shebal Peh to make an Erev. The Torah itself says there are domains and don't cross them. Like Mil is a level, Ish Tam Yoshev Ayholois, that Yaakov is the union of Ish Tam, which means the Aved of Mil is born this way, and therefore is a dweller of the tents. He fuses the Reshuyos. Shezel Metzad Gilu Elyanai Oidiyos, so this is even higher than Shabbos. Shesham there, it's like this. Ein tfisas makim klal the metzias achitzonim. The level of Shabbos tolerates klippa, which is why it's dangerous. Don't go there. But the level of Milah, there is no klippa. No metzias at all. It's a pure essential kedusha. As he goes on to elaborate, and herein lies the distinction between Shabbos and Milah. That the revelation of Shabbos, even though it's talking very lofty, but still it is a shaykh adayin l'seder ishtalshelus. It's still connected to ishtalshelus. It's like Seviv Kol Almin in general. In general, it's Seviv, but Kol Almin. You measure it by its distance from, as it were, Almin. The classic infinite is measured by its infinite, its non-finite properties, which means that there is some measure in an indirect way. And that's like Shabbos. Shivishim Binyan, as we said before, it's called part of the 7 days of the building of creation. So there's this element of creation. That's why from this level of Shabbos, there's a possibility that that the Chitzonim should get a Yanika. If we will engage in the world, which is why we may not on Shabbos. But Mila, it's completely beyond the Hishtalshalos. Therefore, Shemini, it's 8. Sheshom ein tfisas makim klal the metzias achitzonim, that there's absolutely no literally value at all for the very existence of the chitzonim. They are completely transparent, as it were. The whole metzias doesn't exist there. Zeh shemila deiche Shabbos, and therefore Milah supersedes Shabbos. Shenasim os kol hamalachas de Milah. We do all the malachas of Milah. Why? Because it's such a level that there's not the union of opposition to likus. This because why? Where there's not even divisions in the likus. Whole separate entities. So because it's the pure oneness of the likus, it's not shaykh in the case of the emes ha'tsh Hashem. The klippa should be able to get a chayis. You follow? Klippa can only get a foothold when there is some level of division of barrier, which is classic Shabbos, before the Erev. But if there's no possibility of any kind of barrier, because why? There shines the purity of Achtos Hashem, then nothing can oppose that and corrupt that and get and seize it for self. So in Mokim Shash, there's in Mokim Lachshosh, there's therefore no need to be concerned. That herefore engaging in malacha, which is about refining the world, that Klippa should be able to get a chayis from it. Therefore, you do all these malachas and Shabbos. Now, why is there a need to remove the milah and remove an arla? That implies there is some kind of aveda here. Lidar Gis says, he concludes, since it's such a lofty revelation, it's a gift from Hashem, and come completely from above. And Hashem wants us always to partner with Him. And Milah is a gift that is not commensurate, not based on our Avodah. So therefore, in order to be a partner with Hashem in the mitzvah, so binyan ha-malacha, pu'ulas ha-milah, so what is the whole malacha that we do? What's the pu'ul of milah? Ein el asoras ha-helen v'hester, all we're doing is removing a barrier, sheyev shelakabel is goyd lo, in order to receive this oid, which begs the question, but we just said there is no helen v'hester. If it doesn't have mitzvah, so why there's no helen v'hester? L'chora just means from our perception. This is all true, but from our perception, there's still, where we are. So we have to partner with this and open up to this gili, tremendous gili of milah, which is a gift milah maila, the madreg of shmini, or the maila of shmini, of irav reshuyos. We just have to remove our own barrier and open up to it. But we're not finished, which are going to give us further insight why at the end of the line, when it comes down to Yesod, it's so important to remove the Orla. When they give that unity comes all the way down. The Irav Reshuyas comes all the way down. It's Chachma Bina, and then it's Netzach and Hoid, Yesod and Malchus. As you go down the line, more critically, it's important that the Orla be removed. So he's going further. And to explain this even in greater detail. Sometimes, we found often because of the paucity of our understanding. So leave good enough alone. We understand that now the Maimah adds more nuance and more dargis. It's meant to make it clearer. Sometimes it makes it more challenging. That's because of our chsorim. We'll try. So we said before in Sev Gimel that this level where there is no distinction between one domain and the other, even in Kedusha, that's Adam Kadman. What's Adam Kadman? Literally primal man. It's the first madrega post Tzimtzum. It's the highest level on the Kav that incorporates all of the Eilamas. Now, because where he's going now is to explain further why the need of removal of the orla, the end of the hashpah. And furthermore, it's such a giloi that before which light and darkness, chashecha ka'ira, so then why does it end up only in one place, not in another tak? So further explanation. In the inyan of ak, gufa yesh chitzonis ak pnimius ak. There's the external dimension, the pnimius dimension. Shehem, that they manifest k'mei chitzonius, they're similar to chitzonius hakeser, pnimius hakeser. Why is he telling us it's the same? Because obviously one devolves from the other, keser comes from ak. But by involving keser, we're talking about what? Chitzonius harotzen and pnimius harotzen, which we encounter all the time. What's the difference? Chitzonius harotzen, in the summary, if I were to ask you, you want to venture an answer? In B'chlal, a simple answer, one sentence. The difference between... Exactly. Chitzonius harotzen is a means for an end. You want it, but not for the thing itself. And pnimius harotzen is... This is what you want. Understanding that, we'll understand what's coming further. So what is ak? Ak is the Adam, which means the 10 Sviras, the whole layout of creation in general. Brings the name of the Magid. In ak is expressed the primal machshava, meaning to say the intent and the purpose of creation. And that is machshavas Machshava klolis v'rotzen kloli al kol. That's where Hashem manifests. He's the whole objective for the whole creation that then descends and emerges from Ak. Now this idea, this expression of rotzen, which is I want Eilemus, right? That's why Eilemus come, because Hashem wants them. That is a rakpines chitzonius. That's not the pnimius harotzen. Hashem's giving rise to, or creating, or manifesting. Ishtal shalus. It's obviously his rotzen. He's the creator. He wills it and brings it into being. However, it's only his chitzonius dikarotzen. On this level, chitzonius harotzen is very lofty. Light and dark are equal, because in the face of this infinite rotzen, it could be this, it could be another. It's infinite. So chitzonius act, there could be a unique, because in the face of chitzonius act, the chitzonius harotzen, everything is equal. This is an infinite will. Because this is the rotzen that embraces all of creation, the highest levels and the lowest levels. In this rotzen, in fact, there's klippa, there's chitzonim, there's atzilut, there's bria, there's everything, all in one moment of, or one level of expression. It's all the chitzonius rotzen, this whole gamut of oilemos, from Atzilus to all the way down to Klippa, per se, it's all a stage. It's all a stage. What does he want? Pnimis harotzen. Amnam tachlis havaydihi. But the whole avodah, the pnimis harotzen is shetiye gam amshachas pnimis ak u'pnimis hakesed, that we should invoke his inner design, inner will. And what's that? That's a yid to enter the mitzvahs lamata. It's only when it comes to the pnimius that the chitzonim are completely nullified. Did I say chitzonius? Pnimius. Mitzad the chitzonius harotzen, klip is tolerated. Mitzad pnimius harotzen, it's nisbatal. Because the pnimis harotzen is the betachtonim and the pnimistic relationship, the proteus and the pnimius, with this little yidele and the elam hazeh in his machshava dibur mais. That's the pnimis harotzen. The pnimis harotzen is this way and not another way. Chitzonius harotzen is infinite. Everything is everything. In the chitzonius harotzen, Hashem expressed, I want an ishtavshalus. And what's this ishtavshalus from kedusha to klippa? So in that rotzen, it's all there. But the premise rotzen is, and I want a yid through his bechira, through his avodah, to do dafke this and not that. Pnimius. Pnimius means internalized in one particular relationship and not another. Inside the avodah and the connection to the pnimis harotzen, and all your enemies are cut off. And on this, the pasuk says in Evadia, he's talking about the last Golus. He was a Roman convert. He's talking about Golus Edom, which is our Golus. He's addressing Edom, and he says, if you raise yourself like an eagle, that by the way was the symbol of Rome, it was the eagle, because it's all up for the obvious reason. Kinecha, and you'll put your kinecha, your nest, in the highest levels of the heavens, meaning to say a level, you want to get your highest from a level, this lofty level where kachashecha ka'ira, where all is equal, because it's bli gvul. From there I will bring you down. Why? Because the pnimius hakavana is, the atmidik hakavana is, dafke toiv and not ra. Dafke this machshava, not that machshava. This dibur and not that dibur. The tiniest pratisdike behaviors and choices, therein lies the pnimius hakavana. That's the makavana. And everything else was a stage to set for that setting. The holy shtalshalos. Shagam, as he goes on to say, Shagam kasher takbiya kenesher, even when Klippa rises and elevates itself like the eagle. What does this mean, the eagle rising? That's Klippa elevating itself, lakabel yenika mechitzonius hakeser. It wants to get yenika from the infinite ratzon, which is the chitzonius haratzon, which is infinite. And to get yenika from the chitzonius ak, rooted in chitzonius adam kadman, in brackets again, Bechinas machshava haklolis, it's its all-encompassing klolis. Machshava, let there be oilemus, which includes the loftiest levels and then Klippa, all in one skira, one glance, one embrace. Shagam mechitzoni mechlalze. The chitzoni Yisrael said, I want to create Klippa. So I'm in mechutten. So Klippa says, I'm in mechutten here. You brought me into being. I'm rooted right here in this Ratzon. Hello, I'm here. So what's going to stop Klippa from being, in other words, Klippa says, you created me. So you created me, so I've validity. And I wish, therefore, to draw my chayas from the place that you created me, which is this lofty level of ak. The answer is, you're right. But there's a pneumius. It's not the end all. Hashem created because he's this great creator, and he looks back at wonderful creation. Look how varied it is. We have Hatzilis and Klippa. It's so interesting. It's so varied, and it's a multi dimension. That's the chitzonius. The Pnimi says, I want it dafke like this and not like that. Coming down to the most finite behavior. In the Pnimi is under, like the Chassidim say, under the cover, under your head, and under in the sleeping in bed that no one sees and it makes no effect, and nobody, and you're a big chassid, and so what's going in the machshava? No, that's negir. That's the Pnimi sakavana. That's why we need at the end of the milah, as you conclude, the removal of the orla. In the mishama yiritcha. So they actually, I'll bring you down from there, from Ak, by invoking Pnimius Ak. What invokes Pnimius Ak? Our Avodah. Behind the Avodah, the Torah mitzvahs. The Avodah of Torah mitzvahs, Shazeh Mashem Esayim, Umavai, the Pasuk says, the Pasuk in Avadia, if means you do, you raise yourself like the eagle and you place your nest in the loftiest heights. From there, I'll bring you down to Havaya. Thus saith Havaya. What's Havaya? Like it says in Zayar, Shemitzvahs tluyas ba'ishet Hashem Havaya. It's a reference to mitzvahs because all mitzvahs are all extensions of one of the four letters of Hashem Havaya. Ka'anvin be'istakila, like grapes in a cluster. And all the grapes are the different mitzvahs. They're all part of the great cluster, which is Yud-Kei Vavke. Just simply to say that Yud-Kei Vavke here is a reference to what? To Torah mitzvahs, and thus speaks Havaya, because the Yid will do Torah mitzvahs, and you're out. And the only reason I created you is that you should be out and be rejected. So he says, Shesh mitzvahs is at least by Yisiyud. There are mitzvahs that are connected to Yisiyud, to Shem Havaya. Adleis, Hey Acharayna, and then there are mitzvahs that are connected to the last letter of Shem Havaya, page 230. Lochin, they are mitzvahs. So the point being, that's through mitzvahs, mamshichim. Again, this echoes, I hope, the maamar that you said, right? Before the Badekan. The Makif, that's what the maamar is talking about. That you said when you got married before your chuppah. The whole maamar is basically this theme, that the first is Damshocha, Chitzoni is Makif, but that's not enough. It's a different, it's not the same message there, but the dynamic there is the same. But the ultimate kavan is that's achon to Damshocha Pnimius, to the Yichud. Chuppah is Damshocha, the Chitzoni is Arotzen, and then the Yichud and the ultimate union, that's a Pnimius Arotzen. But necessary. It's Shabbos and Milah. You know, when you step back, as we always say, when you step back from the maamar, everything gels. But that's the whole point is, it's all the same thing over and over again. The whole point is in the pratim and the nuance and the specific avodah that this maamer conveys. I'm just drawing the parallel in general to that maamer, right? The Amshach Pnimius, yeah. And I'm especially evoking it because they were talking about the Yichud, this whole avodah, the avodah of Mila and the Pnimius of it, the sanctity of it. Another way of saying this is invoking Chitzenius Rotzen, Pnimius Rotzen. So till yeah, the Chitzenius Rotzen, the Makif. I'm saying Derech Efshe. I haven't seen this, but this could be the pshat. The Ingrid is right, like Yishmak Ingrid. The customer is I'm speaking now. The Badekin and the Chup itself, as opposed to the Yichud. So what are you saying? It's Chitzenius Rotzen. Chitzenius Rotzen is Kachashecha Ka'ira. Everything is equal. And Yitaka is saying then, why this person? It could be somebody else. You'd experiment with every girl in the world. Just ended up like this, but in theory, it could be somebody else. Huh? Her face is covered. And it's an acknowledgement of the Ashgacha, Pratis, whatever it is. Yeah. But then comes the Yichud Pnimi. The Yichud Pnimi is where in the Seichel and the Midas understand that it couldn't be anybody else. It could only be you. And that's felt the Pnimius. Why? Because of the atzmizdike connection that you have. As you said in your maamer there, that's dafke, which the maamer will say here too. The amshacha pnim is the etzem is drawn, not the makif infinite, but the etzem. So again, there's these stages in the whole yichud. When you're going out, of course, why this person? Because you did your research, you went out, and you enjoyed the person's company. But fine. But then you realize it could be somebody else too. There's somebody else that may have these very same properties, not could be, definitely, who has the same properties in even a more richer way. Funnier, smarter, more beautiful, whatever it is that you find in this person. No. So you recognize that, but you surrender to Ashgacha Pratis, and you come to the chuppah, realizing this is an act of faith. This is an act of faith at the end of the day. This is the Chitzenius Rotzen before which everything is equal. It's makif that embraces you all. But in the end, to the Amshacha Pnimius, you realize that it couldn't be anybody else because you are two halves of one soul be'etzem. So therefore your seichel and your midas and the body and every part of you was fully, not just surrendering to faith which denies mind and heart and so on, overrides it. Not overriding. I understand and feel it. Why? That's very limited. You understand and feel it because that invokes the etzem. Because be'etzem, it couldn't be any other way. Because we're two halves of one lashon. But the etzem that you really are one, and therefore couldn't be anybody else, is only revealed in the engagement of Amshacha Pnimius, the everyday stuff of life, in understanding each other and experiencing and so on. But if it's not based on the makif, on the surrender in emunah that brought you together, it could be like anybody else, but you just got to surrender to the divine will, then Amshach Pnimius is not going to work. Yeah. Here it just kind of seems to show the my love. Yeah, it's not exactly. Yeah. But as I said, you need Shabbos, you need Milah. There is the avodah of Shabbos. And there has to be that recognition. Okay, yes, lahayich, but I think we get the point. It's already now. Okay, we'll just finish the ois and then the story. No, now we get into the final removing of the Orla. Yeah, after, yeah. Top of page 230. The mitzvahs mamshichem b'chinas pnimis ha'keser, the pnimis ak. Mitzvahs mamshich the pnimis. From there, clip is brought down, not tolerated, brought down. All of your enemies are cut off. You know, go further. In order there should be some pnimius from the pnimius, the pnimius akavon of the Eibishter, which is this and not that. This pnimius engagement. Now there's got to be a sorah. This is already. This is the highest level. The highness afa pisha orla enim bavaveles. So when he's explaining now why Avraham didn't have to remove it earlier, and they would say tzaddikim that had the orla before, because the orla's enim bavaveles is not a contradiction. The enim benasas agiloi. What would it not prevent the gili of what b'chines chitzonius ak v'chitzonius hakesed? The relationship they with Avraham till now was tremendous level, ak, but the chitzonius, not the pnimius yet. And at the chitzonius level, clip is tolerated, it's okay, you can have divisions, you can be chesed, you can be gevur, it can be, that's okay. At this level, dark and light are equal, and therefore there can be a level of chitzonim at a subtle level, and it's all right. It's tolerable. Because the Pnimis HaKavan had not been revealed yet. And if the Pnimis HaKavan had been revealed yet, you can be Chesed, and you can be Gevurah, and have your separate domains, and you're a nice boy, and a good boy, and a holy boy, it's fine. But it's not unity yet. But when the Kavan canal, but when the whole point is no, the Didi B'tachtoinim, which means the true unity with the Eibishter, and that means the rejection, not just the tolerance, but the rejection of Klippa, or more than that, its transformation. So mitzad oitzim gili mailis gili zeh, you actually some shachos that has to remove we have to remove the barrier in the face of this awesome pnimis dika atzmi dika revelation. And what's the barrier here? The barrier between chesed and gevurah, the barrier of the reshuyas. And then at the end of the ashpa, again, as we'll continue, when it comes mamish into gashmias, again, the need for the avodah of make sure it doesn't go to the wrong place. Okay, to be continued tomorrow. We're getting a general idea starting to gel. Yeah? More or less, which is the more, which is the less? Okay, starting to, okay. We're in the middle, we're getting something. Okay, we're making headway.